Merci, Daniel. Thank you, Evan. Elder Lutit, Canada Starts Now, partners, friends. Thank you for this warm welcome. I'm simply delighted to take part in this conversation on Canada's 150th anniversary. Truly a wonderful milestone for our nation. Today's gathering marks the end of a series of conferences on this theme held across Canada over the past few months. In my capacity as Governor General, I too have the privilege of visiting communities across this country. So let me start by saying what we all know to be true. What a remarkable country this is. Despite the very real challenges we face, Canada is one of the most successful and enduring federations in the world. We're fortunate to call ourselves Canadians. So with this in mind, let me set out three key questions we can ask as we approach the 150th anniversary of Confederation in 2017. First, the question we're all focused on: how do we best pay tribute to Canada on this milestone anniversary? Second, let us ask, what role can communities play in celebrating this occasion and building on its promise? And third, how do we connect and leverage our sesquicentennial celebrations to create a smarter, more caring nation for the future? Ceux et celles d'entre nous qui sommes assez vieux se rappelleront à quel
Those of
point
us who
le
are old
centenaire
enough will
du
remember
Canada
how much
en
Canada's centennial in 1967
avait suscité l'optimisme et la
raised
fierté au pays.
pride and optimism
Les
throughout the country.
célébrations avaient été
The celebrations
initiées
were
à l'échelle
launched
des collectivités.
throughout
Et je
Canada's
crois
communities,
que
and
nous
I
avons
believe
tout intérêt
that we
à continuer
should
de
continue
compter sur les
along
noms
the same
potentiels
lines and
de
count
cette
on
démarche pour
the
guider
wonderful
nos
potential
efforts.
of such an effort to orient
Si
our
je
efforts.
dis
If
cela,
I'm saying
c'est
this,
pour plusieurs
it's
raisons.
for several reasons.
Entre autres, parce
Amongst
que cela
them
correspond à
is
notre
the fact that this
histoire
corresponds
et
to our
nos
history
traditions
and to
multiculturelles.
our multicultural
Le
tradition.
Canada a été bâti
was
entièrement
built
par des gens
entirely
vivant et travaillant ensemble
by people working
dans
together
des circonstances particulières et dans le cadre
in
de cultures
difficult
et
circumstances
d'environnements divers.
and
Le Canada est
in different
essentiellement
cultures and
le fruit
environments. Canada is
d'une
essentially the
expérience
fruit
audacieuse de
of
la
a
diversité,
bold
ce qui
experience
fait
in
qu'une
diversity,
approche
which means
fondée
that an
sur
approach
les
based
collectivités
on
pour les
communities
célébrations de 150e
for
anniversaire
our
est tout à fait
150th anniversary
conforme à cette
celebrations
réalité.
is
Les
quite in line with
collectivités
this
peuvent
reality.
également nous aider
Communities can
à
also
faire de
help
cet
us
événement
make
un
this
legs
event
durable grâce à leur incroyable réserve de talent,
lasting
de compassion
heritage because
et
of their
d'énergie.
energy and
When I was
compassion.
installed as Governor General, I issued a call to service to all Canadians to join in the building of a smarter, more caring nation, keener minds and kinder hearts. And it has been so interesting and inspiring to see how well this message has resonated at the local and regional levels. The call has certainly been answered by the Community Foundations of Canada, which, aside from being one of the sponsors of this event, has taken its long-standing program of community support to a whole new level, with 191 different community foundations in communities across this country. I'm delighted and inspired by this development. We build a smarter, more caring Canada by creating smarter, more caring communities. Those communities in turn help us to reinforce our values, to replenish and renew our institutions, and to strengthen our nation. It's important to note that the wider effects of change at the community level are exponential. Good ideas and initiatives spread across this country, improving lives in other towns and cities in ways often never imagined. Put another way, the impact is more akin to multiplication than simple addition. It's geometric progression and not arithmetic progression, or 1 + 1 does add up to 3 or more. As you know, one dynamic and compassionate community can have an impact far beyond the city limits, just as one individual can make a difference far beyond their immediate circle of friends, family members, and co-workers. And that's why I'm convinced that our communities can show the way to 2017 and beyond. And now to our challenges. Our cup is certainly at least half full, but far too many Canadians are disadvantaged and living in need. I won't try to be comprehensive in listing the problems we face, but again would point us in the direction of our neighborhoods and communities for insight into the work we must do. Having traveled to every province and territory in this vast country, I am struck by how often great success and great need are found side by side. Canada is a country of considerable wealth and of far too much poverty. Ours is a land of learning, but also of insufficient access to quality education for all. We are incredibly diverse, yet we also suffer from persistent barriers to equal opportunity. We know our strengths, but we also know the challenges we face. The 150th anniversary of Confederation is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Canadians not only to celebrate our country, but also to take a clear-eyed look at where we can and must improve. Let me share with you one of my favorite strengths of a community coming together to use its strengths and generosity to overcome adversity. Until we came to Ottawa 2.5 years ago, my wife and I lived in Waterloo. I was at the University of Waterloo, and we lived on a 100-acre farm about a 10-minute drive from the university, and we were in Mennonite country. Our neighbors were all Mennonites. They were horse and buggy people. They did not use cars or trucks. They had tractors on their farms, but no cars and trucks, and they wore their unusual costumes. And as we moved into the neighborhood, we were a little bit nervous about how we would establish friendship with these new neighbors. Well, of course, within 24 hours, that became a great plus. These were wonderfully warm people. And one of our Mennonite neighbors, Edgar, in fact, leased the land from us, and he farmed it and kept the farm, the soil, in impeccable condition. We'd been there 4 or 5 months, and my wife was managing a horse boarding operation with 36 horses boarded there. That's a lot of hay, I got to tell you. And she was obviously trying to run this at least at a break-even basis, which was a challenge. And our insurance premiums had gone up. And the adjuster said, well, have a good look at the valuation you put on each of your buildings. You want to be sure it's not insufficient, but don't overinsure, get it just right. So she was out there one day looking at a drive shed, a small barn, and Edgar was there farming, and she said, Edgar, give me some help. What would it cost to replace this barn? He said, well, why do you ask? She said, well, we have to insure it in case there were an accident. He said, well, why would you insure it? She says, well, if it burns down, it would cost us a certain amount of money to replace it. We'd have to rebuild it. He says, no, we'd rebuild it. We'd rebuild it. When your neighbor's barn burns down, you come and help them rebuild it. And then he said, well, hold on now. We'd provide the labor, and there would be some secondhand timber. That's easy. We get it. But those asphalt shingles on the roof, they'd have to replace, so put $2,000 of value in it. That'd cover the asphalt shingles, and the farm would be rebuilt. And of course, that was the spirit of that neighborhood, but that spirit of barn raising has been with us from the very beginning. I'm aware that in one sense this story is extraordinary, but on the other hand, everywhere I go in this country, I see that evidence of the impulse to help others and how it's both generous and practical. It's led me to see barn raising as a metaphor for how we can build a smarter, more caring Canada. Our 150th anniversary can be a nation-building event on par with 1967, a year that gave us the Order of Canada and our Canadian Honour System, Expo 67, and multicultural celebrations across the country, to name just a few legacies of that year. As individuals, as communities, as a nation, we can leverage this milestone to engage in widespread barn raising, wherever want and deprivation exist. By engaging in local initiatives that honor our past, speak to present needs, and look to the future, we can pay a lasting tribute to Canada, our common ground. And let me just add a story that I love to tell about how this business of building barn raising at a local community level has this exponential effect across the country. It goes back to 25 years or so. Mother Teresa was in Montreal speaking at an event, and a group of us gathered after her speech, and one of our neighbors said, Mother Teresa, we're so moved by your work in India. What can we do to help? And I, being a university president of some standing, expected she would say, write large check to my community center in Calcutta in India, and I will ensure that it does good work. She said, look in your own neighborhood. Look in your own home. I guarantee that there is someone who needs your love and care. That resonated with me. Look in your immediate precincts. And then after she gave her speech, it was covered by the five newspapers in Montreal. Four of them were quite laudatory, very praiseworthy. The fifth took a kind of realpolitik approach to it, a kind of, what does this really mean in the scheme of things? And it was quite negative. It says, look, what this woman does is remarkable, and she'll probably be canonized by the Roman Catholic Church, as she was in due course. But she provides food and shelter for perhaps 200 people in Calcutta, a city of 20 million people, over half of whose population lives in the most dire poverty you can imagine. And in a country of 1 billion or so people, many of whom live in the most dire poverty that you can imagine. What she does, in the scheme of things, is a drop in the bucket. It's just a drop in the ocean. That bothered me for the longest time. And we were at a birthday party. We had 5 daughters in 7 years, so birthday parties were big deals. And we'd finished one of the birthday parties, and my eldest daughter came up to me and said, Dad, you know the ghost stories you tell at the birthday parties to try to scare the kids and entertain them? They're all lies, you know. And the kids know they're all lies. Why can't you do magic like Dean McFarlane? Well, Dean McFarlane was the dean of the School of Journalism at Western, and I was the dean of law, and I thought, bloody Andy McFarlane, what's so smart about him? And, you know, a magician in the eyes of my children, that is really challenging. So I went to the McFarlane household a few months later to witness a birthday party, and there was Andy McFarlane dressed up like a magician, cape, tall hat, wand, had a mustache out like this, and he was prancing around doing magic, and of course the kids were mesmerized. So I got myself over here so I could watch what was going on behind the sleeves, and he held out a glass of water. He said, I will turn this water into wine. And I thought, careful, Andy, the last time that was tried was 2,000 years ago by someone at a little more authority than you have. But he puts the water in his other hand, and he has a little syringe of little eyedropper that has 1 drop of red vegetable dye in it, and he drops the drop of vegetable dye in the glass, and then he presents it to the children, and they see the 1 drop, all of this water, and he says, abracadabra, and he swirls it around, and of course the clear water suffuses into a beautiful shade of rosé, magic. And I thought, that's my 1 drop from Mother Teresa. But I was thinking of it as a mathematical matter, of a physical matter, relative volume in a glass, 1 molecule amongst many, many others. I should have been thinking of it as chemistry. That 1 molecule of color suffusing all of the other molecules of H2O, which were clear, and turning them into a totally different shade, a different culture, changing the culture. And that's, of course, of what we'd love to do in Canada. A smart and caring nation, community by community, changing the culture. Merci, thank you very much.